This is the Breast Love Center. Here, numerous families, including my own, were monitored 24/7 by the social services to make sure they were fit to keep their children. My family passed breast lab tests with cars, but it didn't help me being taken away from my mother, and it didn't help the Breast Lab Center, which closed in 2008. As a child, it seemed quite a nice place to live, but it always was surrounded with fear and suspicion. Cameras sat around every corner. The inspectors always had their eyes on us. Even at night, we couldn't escape. Overall, my stay in Brixton was far from joyful, and even now I can't help but feel like a German looking out for Stasi. Overall, things are feeling a bit authoritarian as late. In 2016, the social services issued 12,000 referrals, increasing 15% more than the year before. Since the courts rarely turn down social services referrals, it's safe to say at least 1,000 of these are taken into care each year, and it's increasing. Only last year, the rate of referrals has increased 5%. Before that, 4%. Overall, the rate of childcare referrals has increased 297% since the Children Care Act enabled the social services to do so, in stark contrast to the rate of abuses, which has dropped by around 8%. So what's the translation? Children being taken into care has increased. Abuses has not. Where did this all start? How did we get to a point where social workers were taking more children than they need to? Who's responsible if there's anyone to be held accountable at all?
If we're not prepared to predict and intervene far more early, then there are children that are going to grow up in families that we know perfectly well are completely dysfunctional, and the kids a few years down the line are going to be a menace to society and actually a threat to themselves.
I'm interested in how early, because a lot of the evidence suggests you need to be getting in there while the child is still in nappies, frankly.
Or pre-birth, even. We should be intervening far earlier, making it clear that in those circumstances, from a very early age, there's going to be support, but also some sense of discipline and framework put in place in order to make sure that that child gets a better start in life.
So in 2007, we got forced adoptions. The government set a quota on the amount of children that should be taken into care. Not only that, it enabled the social services to force a child into adoption, something which no country in the EU ever did. The results? Under this quota, 22,000 children, or perhaps more, were taken into care without reason, on false pretenses, with irreparable consequences for the children's future. Those leaving care have irreparable mental problems, with a higher than average suicide rate, and a crime rate that would make America blush, and all for the sake of Mr. Blair's duty of care.
That the wrongful adoptions figure each year is around about 1,000 and has been for a number of years. But these are very often people without much of a voice. The Italian lady visited the country in 2012 when she was pregnant. She had an episode because she was mentally ill, bipolar. She was sectioned. They forced a cesarean on her, took her baby and put the baby up for adoption. It's a good case to look at because in that case there was an aunt in the family who would be willing to look after the baby and her two sisters in America, and the courts refused that and wanted adoption.
An odd thing about this system is how it operates. Once in care, you become the child of the social worker who exists as your corporate parent. A corporate parent is, for all intents and purposes, a parent, except without the tender love and care a child comes to expect from one. Yet they have the authority, with the ability to decide who you talk to, with what means you talk to them. Even if you do get a good social worker who's benevolent enough to allow you to live your life, they're not the only ones who have the authority. As a child under a full care order, a team of bureaucrats has more control of your life than anyone else, more so than the foster carer, who has de jure no veto power. Obedience. Once in care, you become a pawn, powerless and repressed. Children denied true care, tenderness and love end up with irreparable mental difficulties. They seldom speak, and if so, do it alone in a corner themselves, rocking back and forth. Such behavior has led to a whole lost generation in Romania, as those confined to orphanages cannot find jobs due to their mental problems and are forced to live in a life of homelessness and poverty. What joys must await us. It's impossible to truly comprehend the effects of a bureaucratic family raising a generation of British children, but considering the excessive crime and suicide rates, it most certainly can't be good. Given this, it's hard to see why people who support the system maintain its existence because they have a, quote, duty of care. Nonetheless, the system prevails. As I speak, there exists no serious campaign to end the abuses of the child services. It is not a serious discussion amongst politicians. It elicits no response at the dinner table and is entirely avoided by those with the means to change it. It's unlikely that without public outrage there will be any shift in the attitude, and that by merely being unknown the government will get away with one of the most worst atrocities in living memory. I have no reservations about using those words. When generations suffer due to the ignorance of the other, it stands to reason that the ensuing disaster is of its own doing.